Hello everyone. Let us listen to the essay on the famous movie Meet Joe Black. Let us revisit the memorable moments of this movie. Meet Joe Black, a grand meditation on mortality, love, and legacy. Martin Brest's 1998 romantic fantasy drama, Meet Joe Black, is a cinematic anomaly, a film of staggering ambition, visual opulence, and philosophical scope that polarized critics and failed to recoup its substantial budget domestically. Stretching to nearly 3 hours, it functions less as a conventional Hollywood romance and more as a grand, meditative exploration of existential themes. Starring Anthony Hopkins as Bill Parrish, a media magnate facing the imminent end of his life, and Brad Pitt in the titular role as Death incarnate, the film uses the conceit of a cosmic interruption to examine humanity's deepest preoccupations, the fear of mortality, the definition of a life well lived, and the redemptive, often contradictory, nature of love. While often criticized for its deliberate, almost glacial pacing and sprawling subplot concerning corporate ethics, Meet Joe Black ultimately transcends these perceived flaws, offering a profoundly sentimental and visually majestic argument for the beauty found in life's brevity and commitment. The narrative premise is adapted from Alberto Casella's 1924 play, La Mort in Vacanza, and its subsequent 1934 film adaptation, Death Takes a Holiday. The original story saw Death visiting Earth to understand why mortals fear him, falling in love, and ultimately being persuaded to abandon his human desire to allow humanity to resume its natural cycle of mortality. Brest's modern interpretation transports this classic metaphysical fantasy into the late 20th century, setting it against the backdrop of staggering wealth and corporate power in New York City. Bill Parrish, the powerful and charismatic head of a global communications empire, is about to celebrate his 65th birthday, marking both a personal milestone and the climax of a complicated business merger. His comfortable, privileged life is violently interrupted not by a heart attack or disease, but by an ethereal, disembodied voice confirming his time is drawing to a close. This establishes the central paradox. Bill has achieved absolute material success, the beautiful family, the grand estate, the global influence, but this success means nothing to the ultimate arbiter of fate. The mechanism through which death arrives is one of the film's most famously jarring sequences. After a serendipitous and highly charged encounter between Bill's daughter, Susan Parrish, Claire Forlani, a brilliant physician, and a charming, nameless, young man, Brad Pitt, in a coffee shop, the young man is immediately killed in a shockingly abrupt car accident. Death, personified, then inhabits this beautiful, newly vacated body, walking into Bill's life as Joe Black. This dramatic device instantly separates the object of Susan's burgeoning affection, the young man, from the entity who uses his form, Joe Black. This distinction is crucial for the film's thematic weight. Susan falls in love with the pure, honest curiosity she sees in Joe, a curiosity that is authentic because Joe, as Death, is truly experiencing the world for the first time. The romance is thus not based on personality or shared history, but on a spiritual, innocent attraction to an uncorrupted presence. The nearly 3-hour runtime is largely dedicated to what can be described as Bill Parrish's existential audit, facilitated by Death's presence. Joe Black grants Bill a brief, temporary extension on his life, a holiday for Death, mirroring the source material, in exchange for Bill acting as his human guide. This bargain is not merely a plot device, it provides the structure for Bill to confront his past regrets and secure his legacy. Bill is a man respected but deeply complicated. He is aware of his own moral compromises and the distance he has allowed to grow between himself and his family, especially his favorite daughter, Susan, and his eldest, Allison, Marcia Gay Harden. The true crisis of the film, therefore, is not Death's arrival, but Bill's desperate, compressed attempt to define his life's meaning before the final curtain. This drive to define meaning is intricately tied to the corporate subplot concerning the merger orchestrated by Bill's son-in-law, Drew, Jake Weber. Drew, perceiving Joe Black as a simpleton or a liability, attempts to manipulate the board and oust Bill to push the merger through for selfish financial gain. This business conflict serves as a powerful metaphor for integrity. Bill's life's work is less important than his final decision to fight for his company's ethical principles, even on his deathbed. In battling Drew, Bill is not simply saving his business, he is redeeming his own integrity, proving that he can stand for what is right, even when the consequences are fatal. The merger meeting becomes the grand stage for his farewell, allowing him to deliver a passionate, eloquent defense of his life's purpose, stripped of any pretense or fear of consequence. Pitt's portrayal of Joe Black is central to the film's philosophical success, yet it was also a major point of critical division. Joe Black is initially an entity of pure, childlike innocence, a tabula rasa that knows everything conceptually but nothing phenomenologically. His confusion over simple human pleasures like tasting peanut butter, his initial inability to process social cues, and his ominous, stilted delivery of lines, like the famous, "death and taxes," highlight the profound distance between the divine and the mundane. Critics often found Pitt's performance flat or bizarre, yet this interpretation arguably misses the core design of the character. Joe is not human, he is an expression of absolute power that must learn to wear the mask of humanity. His fascination with Susan and his struggle to comprehend the complexity of romantic love, its emotional ecstasy and its terrible weight of consequence, is the engine of his evolution. For Susan, the relationship with Joe Black is a journey into radical authenticity. Her previous relationships, including her engagement to Drew, were pragmatic and controlled. The young man offered a fleeting glimpse of passion, but Joe Black offers something far more dangerous, a connection with an entity that cannot lie, manipulate, or pretend, as he is incapable of understanding such human flaws. Their romance is less about sexual chemistry and more about a transcendental understanding. Joe learns about the human soul through Susan's affection, realizing that life is infinitely more valuable than he, as death, could have ever perceived. His commitment to her, despite his knowledge that he must ultimately reclaim the body he borrowed, represents the film's major thematic triumph, that love is the force strong enough to make even death hesitate and compromise. Director Martin Brest, known for demanding perfection and pushing boundaries, gives the film a distinctly European sense of scale and rhythm. The film's lengthy, often silent pauses and drawn-out conversations, which many critics slammed as glacial pacing, are arguably essential to the meditative tone. Brest forces the viewer to slow down and sit in the uncomfortable space Bill Parrish occupies, the space between life and death. The spectacular production design, highlighting the extreme wealth of the Parrish family through lush settings like their Newport mansion and Manhattan penthouse, serves a visual purpose. The material beauty is emphasized so that Bill's final realization, that none of it matters compared to his daughter's happiness or his own peace of mind, is all the more potent. Crucial to the film's enduring power is the haunting, deeply melancholic score by Thomas Newman. Newman's compositions for Meet Joe Black are characterized by their ethereal quality, utilizing woodwinds, subtle electronics, and sustained string chords to evoke a sense of spiritual yearning and inevitable loss. The score often carries the emotional weight of scenes where dialogue fails, particularly during Bill's final, reflective moments and the tender exchanges between Joe and Susan. The music provides the necessary atmospheric grandeur to support the story's philosophical claims, elevating the narrative from a simple romance into a cinematic elegy. Despite its artistic aspirations, the film was a significant commercial misstep in the domestic market, earning only $44.6 million against a production budget estimated at $90 million, leading to a substantial reported loss for Universal Pictures. This poor reception was compounded by the widely discussed opening scene, wherein the young man's death was sometimes perceived as unintentionally comical due to the special effects. However, the film fared much better internationally, securing a worldwide gross of over $142 million, suggesting its grand, sentimental style resonated more deeply with global audiences. Over the decades, Meet Joe Black has found a robust cult following, largely driven by the power of its central performances, particularly Hopkins's dignity and the thematic depth of the father-daughter relationship. The final scenes, which are meticulously drawn out, bring the three major arcs, Bill's redemption, Joe's enlightenment, and Susan's destiny, to a poetic conclusion. Bill successfully thwarts Drew's betrayal, securing his company's ethical future. He shares a final, tearful farewell with his daughters, expressing the wisdom he gained in his extended days. As the birthday celebration ends, Joe Black guides Bill up the hill towards the light, fulfilling their bargain. The final resolution is bittersweet and ambiguous. Death takes Bill, but the young man, the original, passionate stranger from the coffee shop, is restored, with no memory of his encounter with Susan. Susan is left to process the impossible. She has lost her father, lost the cosmic lover, but gained the possibility of a real, human connection with the man she was first attracted to. This final moment, where Susan approaches the young man on the bridge, forces the audience to ponder the film's ultimate message, that the most profound experiences, whether with the absolute power of death or the simple charm of a stranger, prepare us for the ordinary, messy reality of human love and commitment. In conclusion, Meet Joe Black is a sprawling, ambitious piece of filmmaking that dared to treat serious philosophical themes with a sweeping, romantic seriousness rarely seen in modern cinema. It is a film about the end that celebrates the beginning, showing that wealth and power are meaningless until viewed through the lens of one's finite lifespan. While its demanding length and sometimes heavy-handed execution led to immediate critical resistance, its thematic sincerity, powerhouse performances, particularly from Anthony Hopkins, and sumptuous visual and auditory design have secured its place as a unique and often deeply moving meditation on the fundamental human experience of facing mortality while clinging to the hope of love. The moment when Susan recognizes that Joe Black is not just any man, but an entity of immense power, is one of the most compelling dramatic turning points in the film.